Hey there, my name is Eric, and you're listening to Delve, the official thought leadership podcast of the Desautels Faculty of Management at McGill University. So, I'm the managing editor for Delve, and today we're going to talk about healthcare reform.
There has to be courage in terms of trying out reforms, even if there's a possibility they may not be obvious successes.
So, that's the voice of Professor Samer Faraj. He's an expert on healthcare management here at McGill, and he's a Canada Research Chair in Technology, Innovation, and Organizing. So, before we jump into my conversation with him, here's a few quick points. 1 in 5 Canadians don't have a family doctor that they see regularly, according to the Canadian Medical Association. Emergency wait times are as high as 22 hours, and an aging population threatens to strain an already burdened healthcare system. And while these facts are about the situation here in Canada, countries around the world face similar challenges. So, where do we go from here? In this interview, Samer and I talk about the challenges facing healthcare managers in Canada and around the world, what kind of innovations might alleviate some of these pain points, and why healthcare organizations are sometimes reluctant to quickly adopt new ideas and technologies. So there's a lot to get into here. So if you have any questions or feedback about this episode, you can reach out to us at delve@mcgill.ca. So all right, let's delve into it. All right. So, Professor Samer Faraj, thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
So I'm very excited you're here. So you're quite the prolific thinker on healthcare management and tech and innovation. So I'm hoping to tap into some of your expertise here to shed a bit of light on what it means to be a health administrator in this day and age. And I think there's a lot of people figuring out just how to adapt in this new era that we're in, a post-COVID era, and moving into a new technological era as well. So just to, I don't know, get this conversation started, I'm just curious, what challenges face health administrators today that didn't exist 10 years ago?
Well, let me start by saying we need to go beyond the notion of administrators and maybe the broader notion of management, because the health system includes a lot of different roles that play a role in the delivery of healthcare, and thus the administrators may just be a small piece of it. But the question is right on target. The challenges are at the same time similar to what they were 10 years ago, and they have changed substantively. For example, we just survived COVID, or some of us survived COVID. It has been a very challenging test of the system. We also have challenges of an older population, and that is becoming more and more visible, that the aging of the population is not well understood in terms of what it means for the system. But what is clear is that most people will consume more healthcare in their last 10 years than they would do in their first 80 or whatever years they've been alive. So we have no ability to react well, given that the system is in crisis, the ability of the system to plan for major shifts like that. The shifts have been long in coming, they're not sudden. But the system being in crisis and being managed day to day to respond to smaller crises or daily crises, it doesn't bode well at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess, we're in Canada, and I guess I'm thinking of the Canadian healthcare system with some of these questions, but this doesn't strike me as a unique problem to us. I think around the world, I think everyone's facing a similar issue.
Absolutely. The question is, are you able to think differently? Because it seems to me that governments have put in a lot of resources in responding to COVID, and I don't see a lot of investments being made in the broader questions of health.
Yeah. The healthcare system is managing multiple crises at multiple points in time, at any point in a person's life. So the challenge of addressing those issues, it's just overwhelming. It boggles the mind to think about the challenge there.
And there are other forces transforming healthcare. You got the move to basically get out of the hospital. The healthcare system has been hospital-centric for centuries, and or at least decades in the West. And so it is a question of can we provide better services by not asking the patient to come into a hospital for every little point of contact with their doctor? Could there be regional clinics? Could technology come to the rescue? Could we have remote telemedicine, right? Things at a distance. We tried it during COVID. It worked reasonably well. I don't think it resolves the need for the patient, for the doctor to see you and look in the white of your eyes and check you holistically. But it is, if I just need to renew, for example, my prescription, maybe I don't need to come in to the office. There are other technologies also, like the portable, the Apple Watch type technologies, which, for example, could help provide additional data streams. We are in the era of precision medicine, which is basically a holistic collection of data that may be relevant to you, and putting it all together is a challenge. AI is a word on everybody's mouth, and there's this potential to improve coordination system and treatment using technologies such as AI.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, are institutions equipped to implement those kinds of things safely, quickly, so that it can reach, the patients that need it the most?
Institutions are not ready to embrace innovation quickly. It's probably a good thing too. Some innovations that may appear fantastic early on or have been hyped up or pushed as resolving many problems and many issues may turn out in the end to be just hype. And we don't want to hurt patients needlessly. So I am in agreement with a slower, more careful procedure. Yet technologies do provide huge possibilities for improvement, and thus we need to push them forward when they are working. The structure of the Canadian healthcare system is such that we are not set up for innovation. We're providing services. We are at the brink because there's not a lot of slack in the system, and implementing innovation requires slack to try whatever solutions and see whether they work or what the impact it will have, because some of these impacts may be unforeseen. So what we see in a lot of hospital settings, especially research settings, a rush to try different solutions. They try a bunch of new technologies, but then it's very hard to go from that experimental setup to developing solutions that kind of diffuse through the hospital or through the system.
It's interesting because I feel like organizational structures have to adapt to these technologies as well. I'm just curious how you think about that, how we build our institutions or our structures to and train people too, because the people who are going to be using it to accommodate these innovations.
One of the issues that we seldom think about is how people in the healthcare system think of innovations. I do believe they're all pro-innovation in many ways. When you visit them and you talk to them, you see the Apple Watch on the wrist, you see the iPad, you see the latest technologies and gadgets, they drive the latest cars and so on. So they're not afraid of new technology, but there's an attention to the possibility of doing harm. So let's take a very simple technology, email, which would be one obvious way where you could have patients communicate with the doctor. The system does not like email. The people in the system don't like it. And there are good reasons for it. Like, what if I couldn't check my email box? What if I missed something that you mentioned in your email and it took me 3 days to get back to you? So they prefer to go to more traditional, well-known or well-practiced path, and then they avoid the most obvious improvement that could be. The other thing is that the way we pay doctors. For example, one of the surprises that I faced when I first encountered the healthcare system, they took a sample of, there was a blood test that needed to be done. And I'm like, okay, will you let me know if there's anything, could I see the results, or would you let me know what the results are? And they were like, oh, you're going to have to schedule another visit to do so. And I'm like, no, I just want to know if there's nothing wrong. I don't need to see it, but just let me know. And can you send me an email? Here's my email. And there was this look of incomprehension, and kind of they refused to do so and said you would have to schedule a meeting back. So there are inefficiencies, organizational inefficiencies that stem from the way doctors are paid. They're paid by the act, and there's a huge where that lists all the legitimate acts that they can engage in. And telling you about your results is not part of it. It has to become part of a visit that's well defined as an act, and that's how it gets entered in the system. So there are many changes that need to happen. This change in remuneration, for example, would be important to try out new models.
I mean, I guess this kind of thing won't change all in one day. Like, I don't know, what's step one? If we wanted to see if a new model could work, could we test it at one hospital? How do we scale it back just to build up the evidence base and maybe try to make those improvements?
Actually, that is the challenge. The system does not have slack. One incoming hospital director who had big ideas discovered that he had basically no control over the budget. Everything was spoken for, and anything he wanted to do to innovate, he had to do without money because there was no money in the budget to do much innovation. I think there was a very small percentage of the budget that he could control, actually. So that promotes a certain perspective among administrators and directors of services. My goal is to provide the services and not to innovate. Now, there are, of course, innovators in the system. Everybody knows that the system needs help and needs improvement. When I go see my own doctors, they share story after story of their Kafkaesque existence. They are in a straitjacket. They see the issues. They see how they could improve processes, but they are reduced to this just medical knowledge kind of person who provides the specific care, and they are not in charge of trying to improve things. It's not their domain, it's other people's domain. And the administrators struggling with union demands and kind of how kind of the various issues of day-to-day life. So there's no slack in the system to try major innovation. There are CUS leaders and hospital leaders who have managed to create innovation units and have hired innovation directors. The money often does not come from the government, but comes from their foundation because it's not perceived to be an essential service. And they try different things, but the diffusion and uptake on these innovative ideas is minimal, in my opinion, because the system is not set up to innovate.
Yeah, and that's super fascinating. Like, it's when there's a will, there's a way when it comes to innovation, at least from what you were describing, like getting money from the foundation or that kind of thing. And that's like operating within the constraints of the organization, but still making it work. But yeah, not ideal.
I am hopeful that it can be done. I believe it can be done. The situation is not sustainable. The situation, everyone knows it needs to improve and change. And it is not a question of money. I firmly believe there's enough money in the system. It's just a question how the money is used, how the care is organized. There are ways to improve, for example, the 3 pain points of the system. This lack of family doctors for a significant percentage of the population, that can be dealt with. The ED overcrowding just does not make sense that if I have a small cut on my finger and I end up in the ED for maybe stitches, I end up waiting a huge amount of time before I'm seen, and so on. And then the issue of surgeries, the wait time for surgery is atrocious and need to be improved. There's no slack resources to be transferred there. It's just too difficult to change that. So we end up with long wait times. They were possibly more acceptable before COVID, but because we canceled surgeries during part of COVID, the wait time has gotten much worse and has not been resolved.
Yeah, that's it. And it's interesting because it sounds to me like those three problems are related. Like once you start solving one, then it kind of lifts pressure off the other. Like if everyone has family doctors, then it's like, okay, well now we can go to a family doctor instead of to the emergency. And if you're getting treated sooner, then hopefully you're less likely to need surgeries later on for if your health deteriorates or complicates if you don't catch something early enough. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, there is a shortage of family doctors. Everybody agrees on that, or at least most observers agree. You can train more family doctors, but the evidence is in that most students who go to medical school no longer want to be family doctors. It's only a small percentage that want to be family doctors. They would prefer to be specialists for a variety of reasons related to educational achievements and kind of the nature of the job and the prestige and so on and so on. So what do we do? And one of the ways to solve it, and it has been tried in other countries, in other provinces, is to bring in additional players in the family doctor role. So what needs to be tried are, for example, things where the pharmacist can do things to help patients that alleviate the pressure on family doctors. That's one way to go. It's not perfect, but where it has been tried, it has worked reasonably well. Other ways to do it is to bring in nurse practitioners that under the direction of doctors can provide the typical kind of family doctor visit activities. And then maybe if there's a need to, for complicated cases, maybe refer them into the system to specialists. It's a question of how much you want to empower or how well do you want to train nurse practitioners. You could bring in a lot of family doctors from people who are trained internationally. All of us know family doctors or specialists even that were trained in other countries that arrive in Canada and have difficulty finding employment as doctors. You meet them as, I've met some that are working as nurses, some that are driving cabs. Yes, there are different standards internationally, but they are trained as doctors and we're practicing as doctors in another context. It should be we should facilitate that process.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, in an ideal world, um, what does a healthy healthcare system look like?
That's a great question. I mean, I think everyone would like to be seen, when they need to be seen in the system. They would like to be treated when treatment is called for. It's not a huge ask. It's kind of human rights 101. I do know that the doctors and the various people working in the system are not happy by the state of the system. Most people who select healthcare, they're in there because they want to help people. They believe in the humanitarian agenda about treating others and making them better. And we have advances in science and advances in pharma or in technology or in treatments that often allow us to make this a bit easier. The institutional setup needs reforming, not in a major way, but the management and organizational system can be played with. There has to be courage in terms of trying out reforms, even if there's a possibility they may not be obvious successes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the upshot is better as possible. It's
Absolutely.
just gotta do the work. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, Professor Samer Faraj, thank you so much. This was a really insightful discussion, and I appreciate you sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure.
All right, and that's the show. Thank you so much to Professor Samer Faraj for your insights. And thank you to our listeners for listening. So if you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating. You can also check out some of our previous episodes on healthcare management. Many of our profs are doing great work in this space, so I'll leave some links for you to check out in the show notes. So McGill Delve is the official thought leadership platform of the Desautels Faculty of Management at McGill University. My name is Eric Dicaire, and I'm Delve's managing editor, and I was your host today. Professor Saku Mantara is our editor-in-chief, and he wrote all the original music. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.